years. It was in 96 and 97 against Deep Blue. He won the match in 96, as you know. In 97, he lost a very short match, a 6-game match against Deep Blue. But there was a lot of controversy about that match. First of all, Gary thought, and the whole chess community thought, that the computer played very on computer moves. And Gary complained that perhaps there had been some human component to the chess playing ability of the computer. There's a lot of controversy. Basically, at the end of the match, Gary collapsed. He lost the last game horribly, below his usual abilities as a chess player. And basically, IBM did not grant him a rematch, which was another huge controversy because when Gary won in 96, he offered right away a revenge match to the computer. So basically, Gary could never redeem himself as the best human or computer playing in the world.
That must drive him nuts because he loves to win.
Exactly, he's a hugely competitive player. And to know that the computer has won victory against him and he wasn't able to avenge himself, it's just shattering for his chess abilities and confidence as a chess player.
Why don't you think IBM wanted the rematch?
Well, consider this. The day that Deep Blue beat Kasparov, IBM's stock rose, I think, 15%.
Looks different. We had a big table here with computer, all the equipment. Yeah, it was quite different. Yeah. It's very hard to reinstate these memories. Nearly 6 years ago, probably there's a sort of mental block. You don't want to remember. You don't want to remember, you don't remember. And it was quite a painful time, so that's why I can hardly reconstruct the scene of the crime. We had a table where, you know, we could put one computer, and then my coach was sitting with another laptop. So, and then we had a chess set, and it was pretty long. So we just, you know, occupied the center of the room. Those were not happy days. It's from day one we had so much tension.
What are you doing?
I felt like, you know, we were a bunch of amateurs, challenging the terrible, faceless monster.
Call it a blow against humanity. After 6 games over 9 days, Deep Blue, the IBM computer, beat Garry Kasparov, considered to be the best chess player in the history of the game.
And whoa, Deep Blue, Kasparov.
The great Russian champion was not a graceful loser.
Grandmasters, there are many, many hundreds of them now, and there are a few grandmasters who are so far superior to their colleagues that they should introduce something like super grandmaster. And one could argue that Kasparov also needs a category all to himself. I think we should call the category Kasparov, just, you know, it's Kasparov. I think Gary has now established beyond any doubt that he's the strongest player in history. We've debated this for many years, but we debated it when he was 30. Now at 40, to increase his playing strength means he is the strongest player ever in the history of the game. He's been on the top of the chess world for 15 years now, or 16 or 17, I don't know. He's always been substantially ahead of everyone else. So, it's a Kasparov.
What is this place?
It's the Central Chess Club of the Soviet Union. The legend says that it was Khrushchev himself who signed this building to the chess players. And since late 50s, this building, this old mansion of the 19th century, sort of a palace, became a cradle for Soviet chess. The Soviet chess department, the sports committee chess department, was always located in this building. So that's why the chess officials, they were sitting around this building, and many important decisions regarding number of players were made here. I cannot survive if I feel I'm in fetters. So that's why, for me, it was virtually impossible to play under the strict rules of the Soviet regime.
I started with a couple of colleagues building Deep Blue right from the very beginning. We came to IBM in 1989, and over the next several years we built a series of machines which eventually culminated in the Deep Blue system. I focused particularly on the evaluation part of Deep Blue. That is, the part of Deep Blue that allows it to distinguish what's good about a position and what's bad about a position, and come up with a numeric value that tells you how good the position is. I think fairly early on it was clear that faster computing led to better performance in chess programs, and as programs got faster and faster, we started to think maybe if it was this fast, it would be enough to beat the world champion.
This is the die that's designed in 1985 to 1986. It's essentially a silicon chessboard. It's a single-chip chess move generator, about 36,000 transistors, and generate about 2 million moves per second, maximum throughput. Guarantee not to exceed that.
And who designed it?
I designed this.
They asked me if I would be interested in helping to train the program to play against Kasparov. I thought, well, that's a great opportunity, so I couldn't let that one go by. So that's how I got into the computer world.
Computers first came on the scene back in the late 40s. Scientists were thinking of grand challenges. What could computers do that was never possible before? And one of the first ideas that came out was, as a grand challenge, as a holy grail, how could you get a computer to play world championship level chess?
Initially, everybody thought it's an easy problem. Computer can so much faster than a human being, right? It should be a piece of cake for the computer. It turned out it was much harder than that.
What the real live chess player does is take in the whole position in one conscious awareness. And then really good chess players have an enormous capacity to remember entire positions on the board and to see possibilities. The machine doesn't do that.
Computers play basically by calculation. They just say, okay, if it's my move, what are my possible moves? If I go there, then you can go there, and then I go there, and it just continues on in a string like that. And every position along the way gets evaluated.
But the difficulty with chess is that the numbers become astronomical very fast. If you just multiply, I have 8 moves, you have 8 counter moves. I have 8 counter moves to each one of your 8 counter moves, and you have 8 counter moves to each one of my 8 counter moves. It's soon the numbers are as big as the universe.
In fact, that number, the number of atoms in the universe, is a trivially tiny number compared to the number of games you can play up to move 40.
So the problem with chess has always been, how the hell do you solve the exponential problem? How do you solve the problem of the sheer size of the numbers involved? Now what these guys have, the technique has got a beautiful name. It's called brute force.
This has been a classic confrontation this afternoon of man versus machine. Oh, there it is. And Kasparov has soundly defeated the Neutron 9000.
Thank you. Thank you. I find it amusing. All machines are just wires, nuts, and bolts.
They're stupid by nature.
IBM produced something which was completely different. It was a program put into hardware. So they built a small chip which could do nothing but play chess, but it could do that extremely well. And this chip they duplicated, they made many hundreds of copies and put 200 of them into a machine and let them work in parallel. Deep Blue was running 200 million positions per second.
Here comes this 17-year-old, 18-year-old, who's just slowly being let out into the world by the Soviet sport authorities. And Gary was just smashing people, very solid, senior, professional grandmasters who do not lose in 30 moves at all, ever, and certainly not to 17 or 18-year-olds who are just coming in and sacrificing 3 pieces. And these guys are getting up off the board going, I'm never going to play with him again. That was just a horrible experience. And they were having these it was really traumatizing some players, but it catalyzed the chess world. Suddenly, he was a huge crowd favorite because of the chess. It was just sensational chess to watch.
Karpov was there. Karpov was ideal. Karpov, played under the rules. He did what it required to be on the top. And so that's why did they need another one by having Karpov? Plus, this another one was not Russian, half Jewish, half Armenian, and more important, even more important than the national factor, Kasparov was not a person to be controlled.
The Russians have always dominated world chess, and the latest world championship battle was between 2 of them, the holder Anatoly Karpov and his young challenger Garry Kasparov. Gary, what was all the fuss about?
You mean
on that
World
film?
Championship match troubles? Yes,
Yes.
It was an unforgettable day for me because I couldn't tolerate more.
So that's what you were maintaining, that the whole chess establishment was in favor of Karpov at the time?
Yes,
because they wanted him to win.
Yes, they have close connection for a long time, 10 years.
You said to me upstairs that really there's a greater struggle off the chessboard than there is actually on it.
Yes, they use a very strange way, dirty tricks.
Dirty tricks?
Yes, dirty tricks, yes, under the table. It's,
under the table?
It's more convenient because nobody can see.
Right. You're not saying that Karpov kicks you under the table, right?
No. Yes, I hope I'm much stronger than him.
It was suspended at 5-3, I remember, because he was winning 5-0, then you started to come back, and he began to lose it. So they suspended it.
Yes, he was losing completely.
Kasparov was busy losing his temper. What a performance, he shouted. I could even win, but they're just trying to delay.
I personally believe that what I was doing was in the best interest. But you know that the players are only one part of this situation.
I was quite lucky that it was a new time already. Gorbachev was in the office, and the political situation has been slowly changing. And you know, in September '85, we started here a new match, a second match, and that's where I got my title.
You're standing on the exact spot, perhaps.
We're talking about probably 1 feet, away from the actual location of the chair where I sat on November 9, 1985. It was my day. It was time change. The country was just about to change, and that's why this victory was very symbolic. So I had a lot of supporters in the audience, and everybody was quiet because they didn't want to, maybe to threaten our luck. So I made my last move, and I was waiting for him to resign. And he resigned. It was, it was quite primitive, so natural. So he resigned, the game was over, and I won. There was only one camera that shot me, actually, with my hands up. So one shot. Now I wish I had more time to go around, just to wave my hands, but it was one shot, and I walked away, I won. I walked away, and I noticed my mother, she nearly fainted in the audience. And there were many people here that couldn't believe that it has actually happened. I'm afraid it's a little bit dangerous, to come back to your past, trying to carve something for your energy now. It belongs there. It's part of my life, it's part of the glory. It's a great history, I'm proud of it, but it's still history.
Human beings are weaklings in everything. They can't run, jump, swim as well as a dozen animals. So we're weak and weaklings. But there's one area in which we have been supreme for millions of years. That's intelligence. Nothing has challenged us. Now, for the first time in the history of our race, something comes and says, hey, I might be smarter than you are, and it's a machine.
I've always felt that this match was really going to be one of the more important symbolic events of the 20th century. And if you look at the history of computers, chess playing and beating a chess champion was one of the things that computers were never supposed to do.
Our first version of Deep Blue played Kasparov in 1996. And he was able to win that match by a score of 4-2.
In '96, there was a great deal of camaraderie. It was all in this friendly atmosphere of, like, do you need anything? What can we do to help you? Did you get this? Did you get that? Did you got that? So all requests being met.
There was no direct IBM involvement. IBM showed up later on when they just saw the tremendous response. They wanted to play a rematch. I said, okay, why don't we play it?
This is a poster that was posted around New York City during the 1997 match. It shows Kasparov with the caption, "How do you make a computer blink?" I think that's a very appropriate type of quote for this situation.
basically, Gary played a couple of computers. First confrontation was in '89 against Deep Thought, and then it was in '96 and '97 against Deep Blue. He won the match in '96, as you know.
This is where we did all the negotiations. This was their Manhattan headquarters. I have bad vibrations about coming in here because I just started with Gary. I was brand new with him. Started in '96, but, you know, really the first main contract I'd done. And it's easy to be wise afterwards, but I had a sense that the rules had been changed, that he was playing a game, and he hadn't been told that it was a different game. But Gary was so sure it was all about science and research and the good things in life, and that they weren't really out to kill him at all costs. But we soon learned otherwise.
For me, it was a lot of fun. It was an important exercise, and I felt responsible for this experiment to benefit not only chess or computer science, but also the human race as a whole, because it's a man versus machine. It's a great idea, so I liked it. I liked it, and I played straight into their hands.
Time in the lobby, but I remember meeting you at the door.
Yeah, I think we used the sideline, yes, side entrance to go upstairs. And that was the main entrance for the audience.
The audience was
the audience was down there. I remember it was packed every day. Yes,
it was very packed. Well,
yes.
they had assigned seats,
yes,
and there was
seats.
great interest. Well, I mean, come on, this was the match of the century.
Yeah.
The stakes are high. In one corner, the world's greatest chess player, 34-year-old Garry Kasparov. In the other, the world's greatest chess-playing computer, a machine called Deep Blue.
The world was able to watch through CNN and all the broadcasts because we were able to send that signal out. The story was every hour when you were playing, and there would be quick shots of you in the match.
Yeah, but it could be used by IBM for other purposes. Connectivity of the building and all the technical equipment. It was full of technical equipment. Yeah.
Well, the computers were right up there.
Yeah, but it was guarded by IBM. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. Well, they were very concerned.
Yes, very concerned about anybody penetrating their room.
We're going to have an elevator here in a minute, and we'll be able to go up.
Yeah. Now, all waiting to see the room.
Okay, we better get in.
No, we're here now.
We better get in.
35. 35 is where the TV studio was.
IBM was the promoter, the financier, the organizer, the other player, the controller of the media, the keeper of the keys, the hirer of the hall, the security. They even, you know, broke the rules. I mean, they would keep us out of rooms. They would lock, you know, one day I was locked out of his dressing room because I didn't have the right pass. They changed the passes on us.
You didn't see much of this because there was a pipe and drape along here.
Yeah, but this was the IBM place, yes?
Well, the computer was in there, but in here was where the
okay, here it is, yes.
Here's where the match took place.
Here the match took place, yes.
There was a set.
Yeah, I remember here it was set, and
there was an area back there.
Yes,
very private
small
area.
Yeah, okay, the small place there.
Right, and then there was an audience.
It was called private. They annoyed me very much inside there.
They did annoy you.
Yeah. Oh,
well, that was a bad thing.
Yeah. Before the match, yes.
And yeah, I was sitting here, yes.
You were sitting right there.
Get paid enough.
5 people, you know, you just to move back up.
The machine was in a very mysterious room. It was locked up. We weren't even allowed to walk past that room. There were guards. What was happening in the room? Lots of grandmasters sitting around drinking coffee, smoking, talking, chatting, you know.
So there was one other space here.
Yeah, okay, one of the space, but I never had access. So it was as close as now.
Right.
That's the machine.
It's locked now, and
it's
it was locked
now,
then.
yes. Oh, it's not locked now.
Not locked
It's
now.
not locked now.
But it was then.
Yes, it was there, yes.
Because we have a bolt lock on
Yes,
it.
yeah.
So,
and the terminal 1 was there.
Right.
So, and it was guarded.
Right. So.
And nobody was allowed there, except IBM staff.
IBM people.
It's, you know, like a Pentagon secret room. I said at the match, and I don't think any Pentagon machine was guarded with such with such intensity.
Without further ado, I would introduce you to the team members that are bringing you this wonderful machine called IBM Deep Blue. Would you please stand up, Dr. Flanchen Xu?
We knew we were able to beat Grandmaster at regular frequency. Also, we had some surprise waiting for him.
We spent a lot of time speeding up the system and improving its knowledge of chess.
We also have our chess consultant, Mr. Joel Benjamin. Let's give them a hand.
Deep Blue was just completely different. In fact, at various times we had calls from Gary that he wanted us to send a version of the program, and we thought, well, you know, if we did, he's just going to be more upset later because, you know, the computer is going to change.
They had hired a whole series of grandmasters. I mean, here comes Gary Kasparov, and he says, wow, that's quite an assortment of grandmasters you got there. I see Aleska's over there, Joel Benjamin, John Fedorowicz, Nick Fermian. Man, these guys are really, really serious. I'm not just playing computer programmers.
Monitor radio. Mr. Kasparov, what do you believe is the biggest challenge you face as you go into this match, the single key factor that may determine the outcome?
I think the single key factor is I have no information about my opponent.
Why is that, that you don't get a look at any of these games?
You ask the wrong person.
In chess, you always know something about your opponent. Here, he knew nothing about the machine. He got 0 games in advance. In the end, they said, we don't have any, because the contracts are all public games. And they said every game Deep Blue played against grandmasters and others was in private, sorry.
This time around, the intrigue of man versus machine is attracting even greater attention, but no one will bet on a winner. Kasparov says he's at the top of his game, but the computer is also in much better shape.
When it starts to,
For the match, I think David Levy made a prediction that Kasparov won by 6-0. It wasn't completely out of the question, but it's scary to think about. If that happened, we would be in big shit.
Everything seemed copacetic come game 1. Gary plays a good game, a really good game. Outplays the computer, gets a favorable position, forces the complications.
So now he's finally made a move. He's gotten out of the pin and played the move king from G1 to H1, which indeed is a cautious move. Yeah, and he's starting to shake a little bit. If you saw the camera show that characteristic leg shake of chess players, leg twitch. When your leg starts going a mile a minute, and you can see it there, that he is not a patient man. Kasparov would be so bad at poker.
The first game, Deep Blue played very strangely. It played a lot of moves that really surprised me, and it certainly looked bad.
What is going on with this team? What marvelous chess mind. Deep Blue are going to play right away.
he just wiped the machine off the board. It was so easy. It was easier than he thought it would have been.
One zero. Gary again. He's, you know, like, this is wonderful. Isn't life beautiful?
The quality of the game was lousy. I mean, Deep Blue, it played like machine. I mean, I don't say, lousy is not the right word. It did exactly what everybody expected machine to do.
We should mention that along with Gary Kasparov, the Deep Blue team is with us on stage.
We lost the first game. But if you look at us, if you actually see the team, how we actually behaving, we were actually a fairly happy bunch. The reason for that, we were sufficiently comfortable. We know Deep Blue is sufficiently strong.
So we just felt that if he kept on playing this strategy, there would be different results. And we just had to make a few minor adjustments to correct some specific flaws that occurred in game one.
We have some work to do tonight.
Another question from the audience?
I didn't pay any attention because I thought, come on, this is the, I will beat the machine whatever happens because look at game one. It's a machine. At the end of it, it's stupid.
The first game was so easy. He just won it, and in fact, we were baffled. We sat there at dinner saying, how could it be so easy? Something's wrong. They've developed it for a year now, and it's become much faster, and still it was so easy. And the second game, he got crushed.
Game one, machine didn't pay any attention to king's safety. We have to remember it because in game two and in other games, machine would be taking care of a great deal about king's safety. So now it's absolutely clear that game one and game two was played by different computers.
Game two was the pivotal game in this match when it became clear that they were not a team. This was not a partnership. This was a death match.
Kasparov knows the computer will not be hobbled by human weaknesses such as a lack of concentration, but Kasparov can enjoy human advantages such as being devious.
I can drag machine into the type of the positions where its computing power will be not able to give a right advice.
Gary, using some wonderful anti-computer strategy, got a position where he blocked the position. This is what you're supposed to do against computers. Block up the position, computer won't know what to do, and the computer will play planlessly.
What he didn't realize is that I spent months forcing it to play closed positions so that if ever gotten one, it would handle them better. We spent an awful lot of time working on that specific problem.
And Gary gets into a very difficult position, arguably a losing position.
Right, but I disagree with Fritz. What Fritz is saying.
A lot of the people watching were thinking that Gary would probably get a draw out of it. These are not really the sort of positions that computers tend to play well, where they have a small advantage with no clear attacking lines.
So now, machine sank in the deep thinking. So it spends 15 minutes, which is, it's already, it's already troubling because it's unusual, and it makes a move. Yeah, it got winning position.
And Gary says, aha, I got one chance. What I'm going to do is sacrifice a pawn and get counterplay. All or nothing, sacrifice the pawn.
If the computer just plays like a computer and just goes to try to capitalize and win some pawns and be materialistic, Kasparov would be able to counterattack, and the computer wouldn't see that coming, because they usually just go after material like a cat after a fish and just say, okay, give me that now, it's mine, and I'm gonna get, and then that's how they get tricked sometimes.
Computer doesn't take the pawn. Instead, the computer plays a real Karpov-like move.
Instead of winning like 2 pawns, it plays a strategic move which secures the win in a long-term sense. Computers can't do that.
What's happened?
Well, this was like an explosion in Gary's cranium. Like, this can't happen. The computer is just not sophisticated enough to make this move. This is just like something strange is going on here. This is like an interference. And he really, really got himself worked up about that.
Maybe they gave Karpov a call in Moscow. Tell us what to do. How do we fight this guy? And when you're looking at it, every move it makes, it kills counterplay.
Computer's like coming in to Gary's position, like he's breaking through, you know, the dikes are broken, everybody's coming through. Oh no, it looks terrible. Frustration mounts, Gary's pulling faces, absolute sheer disgust, resigns the game.
Kasparov's played during the second game of his match with an IBM computer called Deep Blue. He resigned in the middle of what he considered a hopeless situation instead of fighting for a draw. The match now stands at 1 game apiece.
This was not a computer-type game. This was real chess.
It was the greatest game ever played by a computer. And we believe that. Everybody believed that.
This shows that it's possible to get a computer to play real chess, grandmaster style chess, not only grandmaster level, but the style of play of a grandmaster.
We were extremely happy because, yes, our hard work all paid off.
From the testing we did, I believed that it could do it, but this is actually the proof.
In fact, that's the one particular hardware feature I put in like several months before just coming to play in that game.
The programmers have spent a lot more time working on it, and they did, you know, probably 90%, you know, they put 90% of the puzzle in place, but my piece was maybe the 10% that put us over the top. I feel great. In '94, I played him in a Grandmaster tournament, and I managed to make a draw. And it was the only game in the tournament where he had white, where he didn't win. So I got a lot of satisfaction out of that, and I framed the score sheet up on the wall.
What did you guys do to it last night?
We would not have a couple of cocktails.
Then he came back and he said, how can this be? How can this be the same machine?
It plays like a Potsdam game, 1, and it plays like the greatest chess master and grandmaster in the world in game 2. It doesn't make any sense. Something's happening.
Then he started looking at the game very intensely. Then he found a couple of moves which looked very strange.
They were genuinely suspicious because, 1, it didn't play like a computer, it played like a human being. It wasn't that it played at a higher level than they thought it would play. It played differently from the way they thought it would play. It played like a person.
We all knew that it was not kosher. We all knew that something happened in game 2. And when we looked, you know, we worked with our computers, very unsophisticated, you know, just laptops, you know, old version of Fritz, but there's no way, you know, the machines could even think of the same moves Deep Blue did.
The funny thing is, at the end of that game, he has a possibility of a draw. He just missed it.
It turns out that the position here at the end is actually a draw, and that one of Deep Blue's final moves was a terrible error. Because Deep Blue has 2 choices here. It can move its king here or move its king over here. It picked the wrong place to stab.
The computer had left its king a little undefended. And Gary could have threatened a perpetual check. Not a win, but a perpetual check.
I think Fred Friedel got a call from some fellow in Germany after the game and said, you know, Gary missed the draw. He could have drawn that game. And Fred said, no. And said, yeah, just take a look at the game.
And then walking on the street, we told Gary, you know, it was a draw, and explained it to him. And Gary stopped in the middle of the street. People walked into him from behind. And he was horrified.
He said, I don't understand how a computer can make some of these wonderful moves that it made and miss a simple perpetual check.
And the next logical thing to do was to ask, how could it play this? Explain this to me.
Gary wanted to know what was going on with the computer. He wanted to know who was programming it and when. He wanted to see the logs.
So he started asking, he said, I want to see the printouts. I want to see its log files, to see how could it play this move.
And they were not going to show it to him. Then they were going to show it to him, then they weren't going to show it to him. So you psyched him out?
In a way we did, yes.
After game 2, Gary, like a dog with a bone, just couldn't release this thought that something was going on.
The more upset he was getting, the more wrapped up in what happened in game 2 meant that he was going to concentrate less on game 3, game 4, game 5.
I have to tell you that, game 2 was not just a single loss of a game. It was a loss of the match because I couldn't recover. Now, I felt it was unjust, that something happened in the game that was not a part of my match against Deep Blue. It was not in the rules.
He wasn't able to proceed to the point of view of, as he would against a human opponent, like, this guy's learned an interesting trick here. I have to adjust to this. Right now he was saying, how did it do that? How did it do that? And never got to the point where he could, respond confidently to anything he knew the computer was going to throw at him.
You have to concentrate on playing the match, but at the same time, your mind is always traveling backward to the game 2. And when you look at this machine move, you don't think that it's just a machine.
He has big advantages. He doesn't capitalize on any of them. And Gary's level of frustration is going up and up and up until it's really beyond the ceiling.
Even with the advantage of the first move, Kasparov managed only a draw, leaving the series even, 1 1/2 games each.
What's your take now on this new, deeper blue? Is it deeper?
It was definitely deeper yesterday. I mean, yesterday something was completely different, and I still believe that yesterday game will be studied by all computer specialists because I think something truly unbelievable happened.
If I'm reading you correctly, Kasparov, or maybe I'm speaking out of turn, do you think there may be some kind of human intervention on the part of this game, or
no,
is there a suggestion of the possibility?
It reminds me of a famous goal that Maradona scored against England in '86. He said it was a hand of God.
I've been to Europe enough to know what that meant. He was quite clearly accusing us of cheating. It was not difficult to read between the lines. And I thought that was disgraceful. Of course it's supposed to be a friendly match, but even if it's not friendly, you just don't make an accusation like that, especially when you really don't have any evidence at all.
It's definitely a mistake for Gary to give a position to Fritz or any other computer and say, this is computer behavior,
And this is what Deep Blue must be thinking, or what Deep Blue would do. I think he's seen from the games that he's played against Deep Blue that Deep Blue is no ordinary computer. Deep Blue plays on an entirely different level from any other computer he's seen. Some of the IBM public relations people said, well, you know, we want to try to keep this a friendly match, you know, and, you know, you shouldn't say things like that. And I said, okay, fine. But, you know, the guys on the team were high-fiving me. Maybe he should come to grips with the fact that Deep Blue can do a lot of things that he did not think were possible.
I think, you know, I think this is not a very fair statement, because I definitely understand better than anybody else the difference between Deep Blue and any other computer.
There's one explanation. There was the human operator behind the machine. If you just imagine there was a human player behind a relatively weak computer, very powerful in calculation, but totally dumb in positional understanding, then you don't have to invent any more stories. Because what's happened at the moment when machine refused to take the pawns? Very simple. This is a human player. It's not. It shouldn't be a Karpov. It shouldn't be. I'm talking about Karpov sitting in another room. You could have a relatively good player, not necessarily grandmaster, and someone who has access to the screen, a real screen, looks at the moves. I mean, because machine is analyzing it, and you can see the main log. And suddenly in the main log, he or she, whatever, sees that machine is taking pawns, but the king is in danger. The human feels it. You don't have to be a strong player to feel it. So you cut the line. At least you have one red button which says, drop the main log. Bingo. So it's over. You cut it. You raise it. So then the second move comes to the top, which is a better move, because the human could say, oh, fine, it's a huge advantage for white.
It's obvious a human being plus a computer is vastly stronger than the computer or the human being itself. The combination is just a killer. So theoretically it's possible that IBM could have used a grandmaster or grandmasters to, at critical phases, influence the machine. And it can be done.
Gary was saying openly that they were cheating, and he was getting more and more upset. I was covering the Kasparov camp, so I reported what he said. IBM, which had given me all the assurances beforehand, because I don't do PR, I'm a journalist, and if they're just going to want me to do PR, I needed the money, but I don't need it that bad, I need my reputation. They said, no, you can write what you want to write. Fine. So after game 2, when they started to raise these complaints and raise questions about the behavior of the IBM team, I wrote it. And they didn't like it. And they insisted that Fred Friedel's comments about Deep Blue come out, and Gary's accusations about Deep Blue come out.
Still, I'm keeping my own opinion that game 1 and game 3, they are typical computer games. Game 2 was slightly different.
Well, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you guys.
And in every press conference after game 3, he would get on the stage and start demanding, where are my printouts? I want to see the logs of game 2.
IBM's team had dug in its heels and refused any kind of compliance. And Gary says, well, we're experimenting here, guys. Come on, give me a break. Cut me some slack.
It's rather improper to be asking to see exactly what your opponent was thinking. That would be like Kasparov saying to Karpov, okay, I want you to write an essay on every variation that you looked at during this game. That goes too far.
We had a crisis before, I think before game 4, when I insisted on the printouts to be released. They rushed out to my room saying, look, you can't, put all this pressure on IBM, you can't insist on this and that, and the match will collapse. So it's talk, it was irrelevant, because they couldn't do anything, they couldn't still match. But the fact they felt free to communicate to me directly and to say whatever they wanted, and I think it was a part of the game. So it always, had this pressure, always, add frustration.
Every day it was something new. and they were just playing with his mind, more pressure. Who decided to do this, I don't know, because large corporations are not known for this sort of stuff, you know. I think it probably just started semi-accidentally, and they found it was working, and then everybody on their team got excited about the effect that it was obviously having.
For example, in one of the games, the computer crashed, and they just came in and started to repair it.
I looked at my mother and my coach, and I laughed and said something, and then the referee, and Carol Drake, she said, "Oh, no, silence! You couldn't talk to your people." I said, "Why not? They're talking to that guy all the time," because they were just typing something in front of me. Yeah.
The human being wasn't even allowed to look at me and say, "What's going on, Fred?" because I might be helping him in some way. Whereas the computer, there were people around it doing, nobody knew what was going on there.
And then it got to the point that before Game 4, he quit. That was it, the match was over. And they had to convince him to come to the table. Nobody ever said anything about that publicly. I don't even think that's been reported anyplace. But he was fed up.
Game 4 maybe was a bigger opportunity. It reached an end game, and he was not able to sufficiently outplay it in the end game.
The score is now even in the man versus machine chess match. Last night's Game 4 between world champion Garry Kasparov and the IBM computer, Deep Blue, ended in a draw after 5 hours. Kasparov admitted he was too tired to go on.
Chess players tend to believe, and have always done this, that the opponent is using some forces against them. Today it's very simple, it's a computer. But in previous years it was magnetic forces, it was telepathic forces, or rays. They were always worried about these things, and for example in Fischer Spassky, I think one of the players insisted that the chairs were dismantled to see if there were any devices in there that could be disturbing them.
He has a larger contingent of Russian players working with him in the second match. And somehow, I don't know for sure, but that may be related to why they become a little bit more paranoid.
The next day, I get in the elevator, I go up to the 35th floor, where some security guard who thinks he's in the Secret Service greets me, takes me by the arm, shoves me into the elevator, and says, "They want to talk to you downstairs." And then he gets on his walkie-talkie and, "We've got him, Chief. We've got him." They take me downstairs. They throw me into this room, basically this empty room, which is now, in my mind, the Gulag. And they take off my press credentials, put a guard outside the door, and I'm not allowed to leave. Finally, somebody comes in and explains that story that I wrote, the original story, got onto the web unedited. What happened was there were 2 versions of the story. The editor punched the wrong button, and the original story went up on the web with all the complaints about everything. They accused me of hacking into the site and putting that story on the web. I said, "Listen, I don't even know what HTML means. How am I going to hack into this site?" And he said, "We're very suspicious of you." They were more paranoid at this point than the Kasparov people were.
Yeah, it's not a hotel in Moscow, but first of all, I think, the bugging is not a Russian invention. Yeah, and I think technology in the West and in particular in the US are probably even more superior. But if we press the subject, if any further, people will say, "Yeah, they've got paranoid because people behind the stage helping the Blue, camera or a telescope recording all the moves, rooms bugged. Look, some of them might be true, some not, I don't know, but I don't have any proof, and I don't want even to go much into these details. It's just to demonstrate you the way the people felt during the match. Fred, what are you doing?
Looking at the buildings across on the other side, and suddenly in one window I saw something round and shiny, and it looked like a photographic lens. So I went to another window and looked out, and Gary said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, just let me look." I didn't know what's going on. So I took his lawyer at the time who was there. We went downstairs and we went to the side of the building. We looked into the building with the binoculars, and his lawyer said, "My God, it's not a camera, it's a telescope."
When you are under such pressure, you know, you could look around and just find that the most innocent object is posing a deadly danger for you.
Chess has a long tradition of psychological warfare, and when you notice that your opponent is deeply disturbed by something, what you generally do in chess is to try and help him to invigorate this fear. For example, if you can see that he's being disturbed by nicotine, by smoke, you put a cigar on the table. Or if he doesn't like a person in the audience, he's worried about that person, get that person up front, make that person stare at him. So you encourage him in his paranoid feelings. And at some stage in this match, we had a feeling that somebody was doing this to Gary.
So there was an agreement at last. IBM buckled and said what it would do, it was print out all of its log files from all games, turn it over at the end of the match to the arbiter, which they did not. So they violated that agreement.
Deep Blue and Gary Kasparov, the world chess champion and the IBM supercomputer, played to a draw in yesterday's fifth match. Some said Kasparov played more like a supercomputer and Deep Blue more like a human. They're at one game each and 3 draws going into today's final match, in which Deep Blue has the advantage of making the first move. Winner gets $700,000, the loser $400,000. Forget the $300,000, says international chess master Maurice Ashley. The future of humanity is on the line. Now the weather.
By this point, pretty much everybody knew what was going on, the tensions backstage. When Gary walked on the stage after Game 5, and he was exhausted and you can clearly depressed, they gave him a standing ovation. And I thought he was going to burst out into tears. It was one of the most moving moments I've ever seen in my life. It was amazing. And he was just so warmed by it, and so was everybody in the crowd. And then came the whole IBM programming team, and they walked out there and just, aren't we the greatest? And they booed.
Hearing you speak almost as if the match is over, but there's a big, big game tomorrow. Are you going to be cautious tomorrow, or are we going to be looking to win with the black pieces, not tie this match up?
I'll try to make best moves.
Good answer.
More than game 1 or game 4 or game 5, but not game 2.
Basically, Gary played a couple of computers. First confrontation was 89 against Deep Blue, and then it was in 96 and 97 against Deep Blue. He won the match in 96, as you know. In 97, he lost a very short match, a 6-game match against Deep Blue. But there was a lot of controversy about that match. First of all, Gary thought, and the whole chess community thought, that the computer played very un-computer moves, and Gary complained that perhaps there had been some human component to the chess playing ability of the computer. was a lot of controversy. Basically, at the end of the match, Gary collapsed. He lost the last game horribly, below his usual abilities as a chess player.
Thank you.
After game 2, you know, all these thoughts, they were, you know, propelling into my mind. And I have to admit that it definitely, you know, contributed to final demise. Because what's happened in game 6, I mean, there was no game. I mean, I didn't want to play. I didn't want to face these guys, you know. I didn't care. I don't thought, okay, if I just play for a draw, if I try to make a draw and we end up 3-3, I have to shake their hands, you know, I have just to smile, and I want just to get it, you know, off my back.
We felt that we had broken him. We really did. And in fact, before the game, we had discussions, you know, and I said something like, look, you know, this guy, he's shot, he's broken down. I don't think he can play much of a game today.
I couldn't play when I just felt that we were dead meat. So it's to be like a sitting duck here.
I kept filming right until he made the critical mistake. And there's a lot of speculation on whether he'd planned this, what he'd overlooked, when he overlooked something. And I think you can tell exactly what happened because there's a time frame running with it. You can see how many seconds he spent on each move, and you can see exactly at which point he realized, I'm going to lose this game. His head sinks into his body, and you can see he has given up. He's going to lose this game.
He lost in a very human way. In that final game, he collapsed psychologically from the pressure, and he just played something miserable. His preparation was terrible. It was kind of like you know, someone coming up and trying to bat, holding the wrong end of the bat. It was almost that bad. It was just the most miserable loss.
Call it a blow against humanity. After 6 games over 9 days, Deep Blue, the IBM computer, beat Garry Kasparov, considered to be the best chess player in the history of the game.
And whoa, Deep Blue, Kasparov.
The great Russian champion was not a graceful loser.
Remember one thing, Deep Blue didn't win this match. Garry Kasparov lost it. In the very last game, he just gave it to them. They didn't win. The match, that last game, was won by Deep Blue before it had started to calculate a single move. It was still playing out of its openings book, and it was over already. So something terrible had happened to Garry Kasparov, one of the bravest and most courageous players on the planet, someone with the best nerves. This man just breaks down like a child in the last game. Something terrible had happened.
Yeah, I remember I had a chair over there in this small section, you know, corner section. And when game 6 was over, I was sitting there, you know,
not in a very good mood. And my mother came to me and she said, Gary, no matter what you think, you had no choice but to go upstairs and to face the press. Go and do it. Be a man. Okay, so I'm a professional.
The match was lost by the world champion, but I think there are very good and very profound reasons for such a result. I think the competition just started. I made one big mistake before this match. It was nothing to do about further investigation of computer potential chess. There was one zeal to beat Garry Kasparov. And when a big corporation with unlimited resources would like to do so, there are many ways to achieve the result.
The IBM PR people told us that we should not smile. The joy was really sucked out of it. It's like we had won, but we weren't jumping up and down. To get to our seats, we had to walk past Gary's mother. And Gary's mother just like clapped, gave a sarcastic clap right in our faces, almost hit me in the nose. Congratulations, you got what you wanted. You're really proud of yourselves. All we did is program a chess computer,
It was a point that we should be most happy, but we weren't. And it sucks, but that's past is past.
It was a shock because I never lost a match before. I could always recover. And even with all the unfortunate set of circumstances in New York in '97, I believe that under different conditions, so I could do it.
These are also things that he has to tell himself in order to come back and play another game. Because you can't go or walk around thinking, yep, that thing's better than me, and still get back in the ring. You have to come up with a way to justify, or at least to build on it, because that's how you kind of keep your composure and keep that strong ego that you have together. I'll get it next time.
Kasparov says he was at a disadvantage because he played an emotional game against an object without emotions. Another showdown is expected. Until then, the $700,000 first prize can keep Deep Blue charged for the rematch.
I was just here, entering the elevator, and I met, just for the very brief, ride down, so this is from the third floor to the ground floor, a very famous Hollywood actor, very famous. I recognized him, I smiled, he looked at me, he also recognized me. And he asked, a bit sadly, what have you done? So, look, I lost the match. It happens. But I'm going to take this stupid machine in the next, in the rematch. He said, no, you will not. I said, what? I'm going to win the rematch. He said, no, they'll not let you play anymore.
Consider this, IBM stock rose, I think, 15% the month that Deep Blue beat Kasparov.
IBM certainly benefited dramatically. People say that they benefited to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in PR, and the internet coverage was so gigantic that the entire internet sort of went into its knees. It couldn't take the load. So it was a gigantic success. I think it was much higher, the value to IBM, because IBM, until that moment, when it played against Kasparov in New York, was a sort of a company that supplies equipment to offices. And Microsoft and others were, and Intel were cutting-edge technology. And suddenly, this changed. People started to say IBM is doing neat stuff, cool stuff.
And then finally, they dismantled the machine, folded their tent, and went about their merry way with billions of dollars of extra value in the company and boasting rights that they beat the greatest chess player of all time.
Deep Blue was crated up and sent back to Poughkeepsie today, leaving us to ponder this deep thought. Why play if you can't party when it's over?
Then what happened? They shut down the computer. No more research. That's it. It's like landing on the moon and not exploring, coming back without anything and saying, no, we just wanted to be there. And no, we're not going there again. We're not going to experiment with this. That's it. Gary is an elephant. He's not going to forget what happened in 1997, lost to Deep Blue. About 3.5 years after this disaster against Deep Blue in New York, Gary had a second disaster, which was his match against Kravnik. It was a defense for the World Championship.
I want to take the title back. And I hope that's still a machine match. And I want to be part of this as long as I can. And I want to do better than in '97 against Deep Blue. So comeback is also a very powerful performance. So to be able to come back at age 40 when you're much older and that's your opposition, to play great chess and just to be still leader of the modern chess, that's quite an accomplishment.
Performance in men's competition from Russia, Kasparov.
It's not about winning a title that I didn't have. I had all of them. In fact, I won everything probably already, but there are plenty of opportunities to come back. I think it's about re-establishing my own authority and in chess and keeping myself going, because as long as I'm playing and playing well, I feel good. There are plenty of opportunities to come back.
Вы сказали, что вы приехали сюда через 25 минут после разговора с чемпионом мира. И он был против того, чтобы матч прекращался. Вы прекрасно знали мою точку зрения, что я тоже... It's inevitable. We compare 97 fight against IBM with my fight against Karpov and the communist system. But in 85, in 84, 85, even prior to my match with Karpov, I had no illusions about the enemy I had to face. I had no illusions about the resolution to crush me at any price. The tragedy, the human tragedy you're looking at in 97, in May 97 in New York, was that I did not expect it at all. So that's was a real blow. I think that the match had to be placed into the context of the general corporate ethics. Before Enron collapse, this kind of behavior was widely accepted by the general public. The public never questioned this trust in the corporate behavior because it liked the results. Now we recognized, we as a public, that the corporation must be as responsible to the public as the government.
We're going to the machine room where Deep Blue has spent the last 5 years. Actually, Deep Blue is not wholly there. Deep Blue is actually 2 separate computers. One of them is now at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. And the other one will be here, which we'll look at shortly. Okay, so we head in here. This is the moment of truth. And right over here is Deep Blue. It says Deep Blue right there.
Oh, thanks.
His brother used to live right there next to it. I have to have a key to open it. I think it's locked. Let me just... I don't think I could open this part. Around back,